All right, everyone, diving right in, we're tackling the EU's AI landscape again, and specifically this AI pact thing. It's
Right.
voluntary, right? But over 100 companies have signed on already.
Yeah.
Some really big names, too.
It's interesting, yeah, because it's more than just a symbolic gesture, The EU's got that AI Act on the horizon, and this pact feels like those companies are getting ahead of it, like a pre-compliance move.
Yeah, like a pre-party for the main event. But here's the kicker. Some big names are skipping the pre-party. No Apple, no Meta. What do you make of that?
Definitely raises eyebrows, right?
Hmm.
To get why it matters, even though it's not legally binding yet, we got to break down what this pact actually is. Maybe then we'll get a peek into what Apple and Meta are thinking, Basically, think of it as a roadmap for companies to get their AI development in shape before the EU Act actually hits.
So less can you comply and more show us you're trying to comply, like building some trust.
Exactly, and they're not being vague about it either. There are three core commitments in this pact. First off, every company needs a solid AI governance strategy. Not just some mission statement, but a real plan for how they're developing and using AI responsibly, within their own operations, especially for those sensitive areas.
Makes sense, especially with AI, right? Unintended consequences could pop up anywhere.
For sure. Second commitment is transparency. Companies have to come clean about any high-risk AI systems they're building. Think healthcare, finance, law enforcement, stuff where even a small mistake has huge consequences.
High risk, high stakes, got to be transparent. Makes sense. What's the third one, though?
Third one is all about getting staff up to speed on AI. PAC says companies need training programs, making sure everyone from the engineers to the marketing folks understand the ethical side of things. Because even if the tech is fancy, human oversight is still key.
Okay, so that's the why of the pact, but paint us a picture here. What's a concrete example of a pledge? Something relatable for our listeners.
Sure thing. One that stands out is about deep fakes. Those crazy realistic fake videos. Companies are pledging to slap a clear label on anything AI generated.
Whoa, that's a big deal. Think of the misinformation without that, right? Labeling seems like a huge step towards trust with users.
Absolutely. It's acknowledging that AI isn't just some neutral tool, it's powerful and needs to be used responsibly. But here's the thing, why does a voluntary pact like this even matter if there's no law yet? Well, companies are putting their reputations on the line with these commitments.
Yeah, and public opinion can be more powerful than any courtroom.
Yeah, and the EU's watching closely. They've been worried about AI for a while now, this pact. It's like companies getting ahead of the curve, showing they're serious about responsible AI.
Proactive instead of reactive.
They're clever.
But let's talk about the elephants in the room. Apple and Meta, big players in AI, but no signatures from them. What gives?
It's tricky. Seems like Apple is still trying to figure out how the EU's Digital Markets Act, the DMA, lines up with how they collect data for Apple Intelligence,
Okay, for those of us who don't have the DMA memorized, myself included, what's the main issue there?
So the DMA, in short, is meant to stop those tech giants from becoming too powerful and squashing competition. It's got rules about data collection, how it's used, all that, which Apple needs to be careful with for their AI assistant and personalized stuff, right? So they might be holding back on the pact until those details are ironed out.
Sounds like Apple's playing it safe, waiting to see the whole board before making a move. But what's the deal with Meta? They've been pretty loud about their issues with the EU's AI regulation, haven't they?
Oh yeah, they've definitely voiced concerns. Meta's worried that some parts of the AI Act might stifle innovation, especially for smaller companies. They've been lobbying to loosen things up, advocating for more flexibility.
So are they genuinely worried about AI's future, or just protecting their turf? Tough to say when companies are maneuvering in such a complex landscape.
Probably a bit of both. Look, Meta's huge. They have to balance their ethics with their bottom line, right? It's worth noting, they haven't totally slammed the door on the pact. They've hinted they might join later, but for now, it seems like they don't think the pact, as it stands, is the right balance.
Interesting how we're seeing these different approaches, even for something voluntary. But let's zoom out for a sec. Why should our listeners care about all this? It's easy to get lost in the weeds of tech policy. What's the bigger picture with this pact?
That's the key question. We're not just talking about algorithms and rules here. This is about the future of AI, its impact on all of us. AI is everywhere already. Recommendations, medical stuff, the pact, even if it's not perfect, shows that people are realizing we need guidelines for this stuff.
So it's not just the commitments themselves, it's about a bigger shift in how we think about AI.
Exactly. We're moving away from just innovation at all costs towards thinking about ethics, about how this impacts society. That's huge because it sets the stage for how AI is regulated in the future, the expectations we have for companies building this powerful tech.
It's like laying the foundation for AI that helps everyone, not just a select few.
You got it. And that's why this conversation is so important. We need to move past the hype and the fear around AI and really think about its potential, good and bad.
And those conversations need everyone at the table, not just the tech giants and the politicians, right?
Yeah.
Our listeners, once they're armed with knowledge, they become a force in shaping AI's future too.
Absolutely. The more we know as individuals, the more we can demand transparency, accountability, ethical development from the folks in charge, the ones building this AI landscape.
So knowledge really is power, huh?
Uh-huh.
Especially with AI becoming such a big part of, well, everything.
For those wanting to go deeper, and we know you do, we've got links in the show notes, the whole AI pact, who signed it, some articles to get you thinking. But before we wrap up, let's talk about this voluntary thing. What happens if a company just says, nah, to the pact? Any penalties? Well, it's not like there's some AI police out there handing out tickets, at least not yet. But this pact isn't in a vacuum, right? It's part of a much bigger conversation, global even, about ethics and how we're going to govern AI. There might not be immediate consequences, but companies got to think long term. What about their reputation? And what if stricter rules come along later?
So they're gambling a bit, hoping this voluntary thing doesn't turn into something that ties their hands later on.
Yeah, and it shows how hard it is to regulate something that changes so fast. AI is always one step ahead, makes things unpredictable for everyone, companies and the folks making the rules.
So we don't really have a clear answer then. Is this AI pact enough on its own? Or do we need stricter rules, ones with teeth, to make sure AI benefits everyone?
$1 million question right there. And it's on all of us to figure that out. The choices we're making now, these conversations, the expectations we set, that's what's shaping AI's future. This packs a piece of the puzzle, sure, but a big one. It's a sign that people are thinking differently, realizing we need ethics baked into AI from the start.
It's a starting line, right? A marker in the sand. And like you've been saying, we got to stay informed, stay engaged, keep asking these tough questions. The future of AI, it's on all of us.
You got it. AI's future isn't set in stone. We're all shaping it right now. The more we understand this stuff, the better we can navigate it all and steer things in a direction that's good for everyone.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Until next time, everyone, keep digging, keep questioning, and keep those AI conversations going.